Sarah twirled in front of the mirror, the soft fabric of her new dress swirling around her legs. 18. Finally. The word tasted like freedom, like a key unlocking a door she hadn't even realized was there. 18 meant late-night movies, unsupervised road trips, and most importantly, choices. Choices she could make for herself, without the constant echo of her parents' opinions in her ears. Tonight she was celebrating with pizza and a movie with her best friend Chloe. But tomorrow felt like a blank canvas, ready to be painted with possibilities. A faint blush crept up her neck as her thoughts drifted. It wasn't just any kind of possibility buzzing in her head. It was a very specific, very persistent kind. A secret she'd carried for years, a quiet hum beneath the surface of her everyday life. It was an attraction, a fascination that set her apart from her friends, a pull towards something older. She'd never spoken about it. How could she? Her friends were all obsessed with boys their own age, with prom dates and football games. They wouldn't understand. They wouldn't get why her heart skipped a beat when Mr. Davison, her history teacher, smiled in her direction, or why she always volunteered to help her aunt when her dad's older, slightly weathered friends came to visit for barbecues. It wasn't that she didn't find boys her age attractive. Some were cute, sure. But there was something about the confidence, the experience etched on the faces of older men that drew her in. A quiet strength, a knowing glance, it was intoxicating. Now that she was 18, the hum had grown louder, more insistent. The canvas of possibilities felt like it was practically screaming at her. And as if on cue, her gaze drifted out the window, across the street, to the house where the moving truck had just pulled away a few weeks ago. The house where Mr. Evans now lived. The memory shimmered into focus. 4th grade. Mrs. Peterson, with her warm smile and the way she always smelled faintly of cinnamon. Sarah would stay after class, pretending she needed extra help with fractions, just to be near her. It wasn't a romantic crush, not really. More like an intense admiration, a desire to be seen and appreciated by someone so capable. Then there was Uncle Mark's friend David. He was a carpenter, with callous hands and a laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Sarah, maybe 10 years old then, would trail after him as he helped Uncle Mark with projects in the backyard, mesmerized by the way he effortlessly wielded a hammer and saw. He'd patiently explain what he was doing, treating her with a respect that the other adults rarely bothered with. She'd even try to help, handing him nails from the tool belt. His smile, his thanks, those were moments she cherished. Even her older brother's friends held a certain allure. They were older, yes, but still teenagers, mostly. It was more of an appreciation for their slightly rebellious nature, the way they drove too fast and played their music too loud. Still, it planted a seed. Looking back, Sarah could see the pattern. It wasn't about wanting anything inappropriate. It was about seeking a connection, a sense of understanding, that she didn't always find with people her own age. They just seemed to get things, in a way her peers didn't. A deeper, richer understanding of the world. These weren't scandalous feelings, not then, not now. They were the innocent longings of a girl searching for something more, something different. And now, that little girl was gone. She was 18, and the longing hadn't disappeared. It had just evolved. It had taken the shape of a freshly divorced man across the street, watering his lawn with a weary sigh. But even as Sarah's gaze lingered on Mr. Evans, a wave of unease washed over her. It wasn't just the thrill of the forbidden, it was the weight of what everyone else would think. She knew the whispers, the judgments. She'd seen the sideways glances directed at couples with significant age differences, heard the hushed accusations of gold digging or predatory behavior. The internet, of course, was a minefield. Articles dissecting the power dynamics of age gap relationships, forum threads filled with cautionary tales and accusations. Even seemingly harmless romantic comedies often played the older man/younger woman trope for laughs, portraying the woman as naive or the man as a desperate, pathetic figure. Her own mother had once made a snide comment about a celebrity couple with a large age gap, calling the woman a trophy wife. The words had stung, even though Sarah hadn't admitted to herself then how much they resonated. This wasn't some fairy tale. Real life wasn't a movie montage set to upbeat music. There were real consequences, real feelings, and real societal pressures to consider. Was she just being impulsive? Was she blinded by some childish fantasy? Was she setting herself up for heartache? The questions swirled in her mind, a confusing mix of excitement and anxiety. It wasn't just about what she wanted. It was about the potential judgment, the whispers, the possibility of hurting herself or Mr. Evans. And then there was the question of maturity. Could she truly handle a relationship with someone who had likely experienced so much more of life? Someone who had already been married, divorced, and was now navigating the complexities of middle age? The blank canvas of possibilities suddenly felt a lot less appealing, a lot more daunting. But the pull, the undeniable connection she felt, remained. The hum was still there, a persistent vibration beneath the surface of her doubt. Mr. Evans was ordinary. That was the first thing Sarah noticed. He wasn't movie star handsome, but he had a certain appeal. He was probably in his early 40s, with slightly graying hair neatly combed back and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled, though Sarah hadn't seen him smile much yet. He was tall, with broad shoulders that seemed slightly slumped, as if carrying a weight. He often wore simple, comfortable clothes, jeans and t-shirts, or a worn flannel shirt. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed, "Look at me!" Sarah had observed him from her window for the past few weeks. He seemed to spend most of his time tending to his yard, pulling weeds, mowing the lawn, and generally trying to keep the place looking presentable. He always seemed to be alone. There was a quiet sadness about him, a loneliness that was almost palpable. Sarah had seen him sitting on his porch in the evenings, nursing a beer and staring out at the street, a distant look in his eyes. It was the look of someone who was lost, adrift. But there was also something else there, something that sparked Sarah's curiosity. A flicker of intelligence, a hint of humor that peeked through the sadness. And yes, she had to admit, a certain awareness. She'd caught him looking at her a few times, his gaze lingering just a moment too long. Not in a creepy way, but with a kind of interest. A curiosity that mirrored her own. He looked like he needed a friend. Or maybe, Sarah thought, a little bit of sunshine in his life. And maybe, just maybe, she was the one to provide it. The internal debate raged on, but the image of his lonely figure on the porch was hard to ignore. The blank canvas was still daunting, but now, there was a face on it. A face that seemed to be waiting. The opportunity presented itself unexpectedly. Sarah was carrying a heavy bag of groceries from her car when one of the bags ripped, sending oranges tumbling onto the sidewalk. Mortified, she knelt down, scrambling to gather them before they rolled into the street. "Here, let me help you with that," a voice said. Sarah looked up, and there he was, Mr. Evans, standing over her with a kind smile. He quickly knelt down beside her, his hands deftly collecting the scattered fruit. "Thanks," Sarah mumbled, her cheeks flushed. "I'm so clumsy." "Don't worry about it," he chuckled, handing her a pile of oranges. "Happens to the best of us." His hand brushed hers as he did, sending a little shiver up her arm. They gathered the rest of the oranges in comfortable silence. "I'm Sarah, by the way," she said, finally meeting his gaze. "David," he replied, his smile widening. "David Evans. Welcome to the neighborhood, officially." "Thanks," she said again, feeling a little breathless. "I've lived here my whole life, actually." "Well then, welcome to being my neighbor," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Looks like you have quite the load. Let me carry that for you." He effortlessly picked up the remaining bags, including the ripped one, and walked with her to her front door. As he set them down, their fingers brushed again, and this time, the connection felt undeniable. "Thanks again, David," Sarah said, her heart pounding. "Any time, Sarah," he replied, holding her gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Maybe I'll see you around?" "Maybe," Sarah echoed, a small smile playing on her lips. As she watched him walk back across the street, she knew that maybe was definitely going to become a yes. The blank canvas was starting to fill with color. Sarah found herself constantly looking for excuses to be near David. She noticed his lawn was looking a little overgrown, so she casually mentioned to her mom that she was planning to mow their lawn and offered to do his too. "He seems like he could use the help," she said, hoping her mom wouldn't read too much into it. Her mom just shrugged. "That's nice of you, sweetie." So, the next afternoon, Sarah, armed with the lawnmower, ventured across the street. David was tinkering with his car, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Hey, David," she called out. "I'm about to mow my lawn, and I thought I could do yours too. Save you some time." He looked up, surprised. "Oh, that's really nice of you, Sarah, but you don't have to do that." "I don't mind," she insisted, trying to sound casual. "I actually kind of enjoy it." Which was a lie, but a necessary one. He hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "Well, if you're sure. I wouldn't want to impose." "No imposition at all," she said, a little too eagerly. As she mowed his lawn, she could feel his eyes on her. He offered her water and chatted with her between passes, asking her about her plans for the summer. The conversation was easy, comfortable. Later that week, she baked a batch of cookies, using her grandmother's recipe. "Just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood properly," she said, handing him the plate. He took a cookie, his eyes lighting up. "These are amazing! You're quite the baker." "Thanks," she said, blushing. Each interaction, each stolen moment, fueled her growing interest. She was consciously, deliberately, weaving herself into his life. And, much to her delight, he didn't seem to mind at all. In fact, he seemed to be enjoying it. The canvas was filling in nicely. One evening, as Sarah was heading out for a walk, she saw David sitting on his porch, looking particularly glum. Hesitantly, she crossed the street. "Hey," she said softly. "Everything okay?" He looked up, startled, then managed a weak smile. "Just thinking. Want some company?" she asked. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Sure. Pull up a chair." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight. Then David sighed. "It's just, this whole divorce thing is harder than I thought it would be." Sarah didn't know what to say. She'd never been through anything like that. "I can imagine," she said finally. "It must be really tough." He looked at her, his eyes filled with a weariness that tugged at her heart. "It's not just the being alone," he said. "It's the feeling like I failed. Like I messed up something really important." Sarah reached out and gently touched his arm. "You didn't fail, David," she said, her voice earnest. "Sometimes things just don't work out. It doesn't mean you're a failure." He looked at her, surprised by her words. "You're really wise for your age, Sarah." She blushed. I try to be." They talked for hours that night, about life, about love, about loss. David opened up to her in a way she never expected, sharing his fears and his regrets. And Sarah listened, truly listened, offering him comfort and understanding. As the night drew to a close, David reached out and took her hand, his fingers interlacing with hers. "Thank you, Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much this means to me." A jolt of electricity ran through her. Their hands, clasped together, felt warm and right. In that moment, something shifted between them. The connection deepened, becoming something more than just friendship. It was a shared vulnerability, a mutual understanding, a spark of something real. The next day, Sarah woke up with a mix of excitement and dread. The shared moment with David had felt incredible, but the reality of the situation crashed down on her. Was she really ready for this? Was this just a teenage infatuation, or was it something more? She replayed their conversation in her head, scrutinizing every word, every gesture. Was she taking advantage of his vulnerability? Was he just looking for someone to fill the void left by his divorce? The societal voices echoed in her mind. "It'll never work. He's too old for you. He's just using you. David, too, seemed to be pulling back. He was still friendly, but there was a new hesitancy in his eyes. He avoided prolonged eye contact and kept their conversations brief. Sarah noticed him pacing on his porch at night, his brow furrowed, his expression troubled. She suspected he was grappling with the same questions, the same doubts. One afternoon, as she was watering her flowers, he came over. "Sarah," he said, his voice hesitant. I need to be honest with you." Her heart pounded in her chest. "Okay," she said, bracing herself. "I really enjoy spending time with you," he continued. "But I'm not sure this is a good idea. You're so young and I'm a mess. I don't want to hurt you." His words stung, but she understood. He was trying to protect her, to protect himself. "I know," she said softly. "I've been thinking the same thing." The blank canvas suddenly felt empty again, the colors fading. Was this the end of their connection? Or was there a way to navigate the complexities of their situation, to find a way forward? The internal battle raged on, fiercer than ever. The hum had become a discordant buzz, a constant reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. A few days passed, filled with awkward silences and averted gazes. Sarah missed their easy conversations, the comfortable companionship. She saw David across the street, tending to his garden, and longed to join him, but she held back, respecting his need for space. Then, one afternoon, as she was checking the mail, David approached her, a hesitant smile on his face. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Hey," Sarah replied, her heart skipping a beat. "Listen," he said, shuffling his feet. "I was thinking, there's this art fair downtown this weekend. I know you're into art, and I was wondering if you'd want to go." Just as friends, of course. He rushed to add that last part, as if afraid she'd misinterpret his intentions. Sarah's heart soared, despite his qualifier. "I'd love to," she said, unable to hide her excitement. "That sounds great." His face relaxed, and a genuine smile spread across his features. "Great," he said. "So, Saturday morning?" "Perfect," Sarah replied, barely containing her grin. As she walked back to her house, clutching the mail, she couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. He was hesitant, cautious, but he was still reaching out. He wanted to spend time with her, even if it was just as friends. But Sarah knew deep down that it was more than just friendship. There was a connection there, a spark that refused to be extinguished. The art fair was a chance to explore that connection, to see if it could blossom into something more. The blank canvas was starting to show a faint outline again, a suggestion of what could be. This time, though, she knew it would take courage, honesty, and a willingness to face whatever challenges lay ahead. It was, potentially, a date. And the possibilities, despite her fears, were exhilarating. Saturday morning arrived, and Sarah was a bundle of nerves. She'd spent hours agonizing over what to wear, finally settling on a flowy sundress and a denim jacket, hoping to strike the right balance between casual and cute. She tried on several different hairstyles, eventually opting for loose waves that cascaded down her shoulders. She applied her makeup carefully, wanting to look her best without appearing like she was trying too hard. Her best friend, Chloe, called while she was getting ready. "So," Chloe said, her voice teasing, "big art fair date today, huh?" "It's not a date," Sarah protested, even though a part of her secretly hoped it was. "We're just going as friends." "Sure you are," Chloe chuckled. "Just make sure you wear something comfortable. You'll be doing a lot of walking, and maybe a little hand-holding?" Sarah groaned. "Chloe, stop it!" But she couldn't help but smile. As she waited for David to pick her up, she paced back and forth in her living room, her stomach churning with anticipation. She rehearsed potential conversation topics in her head, trying to anticipate any awkward silences. What if he realized he'd made a mistake? What if they had nothing to talk about? What if she completely embarrassed herself? She peeked out the window every few minutes, watching for his car. Finally, she saw it pull up across the street. Her heart leaped into her throat. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her purse and headed out the door, trying to appear calm and collected, even though she felt like she was about to jump out of her skin. This was it. Time to see if the blank canvas could finally be filled with a masterpiece, or if it was destined to remain a work in progress. This was her chance. The art fair was bustling with people, a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds. Sarah and David strolled through the rows of booths, admiring the various paintings, sculptures, and crafts. David seemed more relaxed than she'd seen him in weeks, his eyes twinkling with amusement as they discussed their favorite pieces. He had a surprisingly keen eye for art, offering insightful observations and humorous critiques. Sarah found herself laughing easily in his company, the nervousness she'd felt earlier melting away. They talked about everything and nothing, from their favorite artists to their childhood memories. As they admired a particularly striking watercolor painting, their shoulders brushed, sending a jolt of electricity through Sarah. She glanced at David, and their eyes met. For a moment, the noise of the crowd faded away, and it was just the two of them, lost in each other's gaze. They stopped for coffee at a small cafe, finding a quiet table away from the crowds. David asked her about her plans for college, her dreams for the future. Sarah felt comfortable sharing her aspirations with him, knowing that he would listen without judgment. He, in turn, talked about his career, his past, and the challenges he faced after his divorce. He was honest and open, sharing his vulnerabilities without hesitation. Sarah felt a deep sense of empathy for him, admiring his strength and his resilience. As the afternoon wore on, the just friends facade began to crumble. Their conversations deepened, their laughter became more intimate, and their physical proximity more frequent. The air crackled with unspoken attraction. By the end of the day, Sarah knew that this was more than just a friendly outing. There was a genuine connection between them, a spark that had the potential to ignite into something real. The blank canvas was starting to take shape, filled with vibrant colors and bold strokes. The masterpiece was within reach. The drive home from the art fair was filled with comfortable silence, a shared understanding hanging in the air. But as they pulled up to Sarah's house, a figure emerged from the shadows of her porch. It was Mrs. Henderson, the neighborhood busybody, her arms crossed and a disapproving frown etched on her face. "Sarah, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I was just wondering who you were with all day. Mr. Evans, isn't it? The divorced man from across the street." Sarah's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Yes, Mrs. Henderson. We just went to the art fair." "An art fair?" Mrs. Henderson repeated, her tone implying something far more scandalous. "Well, I just hope you're being careful, dear. He's quite a bit older than you, isn't he?" David stepped forward, his jaw tightening. "Mrs. Henderson, I assure you, Sarah and I are just friends." "Friends?" Mrs. Henderson scoffed. "Well, I'm just looking out for her best interests. Some people might find this inappropriate." She shot Sarah a pointed look before turning and walking back to her house, muttering under her breath. The encounter cast a pall over the evening. Sarah felt exposed, judged. The whispers she had feared were now a reality. David looked stricken. "Sarah, I'm so sorry," he said. "I didn't realize. I didn't want to cause you any trouble." "It's not your fault," Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. Later that night, Chloe called, her voice filled with concern. "Sarah, Mrs. Henderson stopped by my house today. She was gossiping about you and David. Are you okay?" Sarah sighed. "Yeah, I'm fine," she lied. "It's just annoying." "Sarah, be careful," Chloe warned. "I know you like him, but he's a lot older than you. People are going to talk." The weight of societal judgment, the disapproval of her neighbors, the concern of her best friend, it all crashed down on Sarah. Was this connection worth the cost? The blank canvas seemed to darken, the vibrant colors fading into gray. The masterpiece felt further away than ever. The next evening, Sarah found David sitting on his porch, staring out at the street with a familiar look of sadness. She hesitated, then crossed over. Hey, she said softly, taking a seat beside him. He looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and longing. Sarah, I'm so sorry about Mrs. Henderson. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It's okay, she said, even though it wasn't. It's not your fault. People are always going to judge. But maybe they're right, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Maybe this is a mistake. You're so young, you have your whole life ahead of you. I'm just damaged goods. Don't say that, Sarah said, her voice firm. You're not damaged goods. You're just going through a tough time. But what about the age difference? He asked. What about what everyone else thinks? What about your parents? Sarah took a deep breath. I don't know, she admitted. It's scary. But I also know that I really like you, David. And I think you like me too. And maybe that's enough. But is it fair to you? He asked, his eyes searching hers. To tie yourself to someone who's already been through so much? Someone who's probably going to mess things up again. It's my choice, Sarah said, her voice unwavering. I'm not a little kid anymore. I know what I want. And what I want is to be with you. Tears welled up in David's eyes. Sarah, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything, Sarah said, reaching out and taking his hand. Just be honest with me. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're afraid of. And so they talked, honestly and openly, about their feelings, their fears, their doubts. They acknowledged the challenges they faced, the societal pressures, the age difference. But they also acknowledged the undeniable connection between them, the spark that refused to be extinguished. It was a raw, vulnerable conversation, stripped bare of pretense and guardedness. And in that moment, they realized that their feelings for each other were stronger than any obstacle they might face. The blank canvas, though still daunting, now felt like a challenge worth undertaking. After their honest conversation, a sense of calm settled over Sarah and David. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they also knew they weren't alone. So, Sarah said, breaking the silence, what do we do now? David looked at her, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? They discussed their options, weighing the pros and cons. They could try to ignore the societal pressures, to live their lives as they saw fit, regardless of what others thought. But that would mean facing constant judgment, whispers, and potential disapproval from their families and friends. They could try to keep their relationship a secret, hiding it from the world. But that would mean living a lie, denying their feelings, and constantly worrying about being discovered. Or they could walk away. They could acknowledge that the challenges were too great, that the risks were too high. They could go their separate ways, avoiding the potential heartache and the societal scrutiny. The decision weighed heavily on them. It wasn't just about their feelings for each other. It was about their lives, their futures, their reputations. I don't want to hurt you, Sarah, David said, his voice filled with concern. I don't want to ruin your life. You won't, Sarah said, her voice firm. But I need you to be honest with yourself. Do you want to be with me? Despite everything? David hesitated, his eyes searching hers. Yes, he said finally, his voice filled with conviction. I do. More than anything. Sarah smiled, a sense of relief washing over her. Then that's it, she said. We face it together. We take it one day at a time. We don't let anyone else define our relationship. David squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with gratitude. Okay, he said. Okay, let's do it. They had made their decision. They would pursue their relationship, despite the challenges, despite the risks. They would paint their own masterpiece, even if it meant defying convention and facing the disapproval of the world. The blank canvas was no longer empty. It was filled with a bold, defiant hope. The following months weren't easy. There were whispers, sideways glances, and disapproving comments. Sarah's parents were initially skeptical, but they eventually came to accept David, seeing how happy he made her. Chloe remained supportive, even though she still worried. Sarah and David faced each challenge together, their love and commitment growing stronger with each obstacle they overcame. They learned to ignore the negativity, to focus on their own happiness, and to define their relationship on their own terms. Their relationship wasn't perfect. They had their disagreements, their insecurities, their moments of doubt. But they always communicated openly and honestly, working through their problems with patience and understanding. 2 years later, Sarah was preparing to leave for college, a bittersweet moment for both of them. They knew that long distance would be difficult, but they were determined to make it work. Their foundation was strong, built on love, trust, and mutual respect. As Sarah packed her bags, she reflected on everything she had learned. She had discovered the complexities of attraction, the challenges of age gap relationships, and the importance of following her heart, even when it meant defying convention. She had grown as a person, becoming more confident, more independent, and more sure of herself. She had learned to trust her instincts, to stand up for what she believed in, and to define her own happiness. Looking back, Sarah realized that her attraction to older men wasn't just a fleeting infatuation. It was a part of who she was, a reflection of her desire for connection, understanding, and a deeper appreciation of life. And David, the divorced man from across the street, had shown her that age was just a number, that love could be found in unexpected places, and that true happiness was worth fighting for. The blank canvas, once daunting and uncertain, was now a vibrant masterpiece, a testament to their love, their courage, and their unwavering belief in each other. The hum, once a secret and a source of anxiety, was now a harmonious melody, a celebration of their unique and beautiful love story. Sarah was ready for whatever the future held, knowing that she had the strength and the love to face it all, hand in hand with David.